What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Grid Encore. I'm your host, Ben Schneider, joined, as always, by Brandon Crossland and his repaired PC. Brandon, it's great to see you back in the usual setup. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well, Ben. It's good to be back in the familiar chair. It's another Motor Monday. And yes, back where I belong here for Grid Encore. And speaking of core, found out it was the CPU that was the issue that blew the thing up. So after some regretful repair costs, we're back where we're supposed to be. Unfortunately, just got to had to find a way to keep that thing cool. There's a big cooler on it. I just don't know why it did what it did. To try to alleviate the situation, I've got a powered USB hub. So if you ever have problems with power management, or if all your USBs just disconnect and reconnect on your rig or something like that, I don't know if this is going to solve it, but I'm hoping it will. Just a powered USB hub right now seems to be like, in a way, like being something that like keeps the nose from being clogged, if you will, like keeping the motherboard and CPU from being clogged up with all the different peripherals I've got going on here.
Well, it's great to have you back in your usual setup regardless, and hopefully that new system works out for you and lasts a little bit longer than the previous one, but it's regardless great to see that you got that taken care of. That's one of the unfortunate parts about adulthood, I guess, is those random expenses that pop up from time to time, but yeah, good to see that you've made it work nonetheless here.
Yeah, thankfully been blessed to never have any PC issue other than self-inflicted before, so this was, had it coming, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in tonight. Sorry we're a couple of minutes late. We got to chatting backstage, and we've got some good stuff to chat about here on the show tonight. We're going to start with yesterday's race here in just a moment, since I'm not on wrap up as much anymore. I still have some stuff to say about the results and the current system that we use for crowning our champions, not just in the Cup Series, of course, but in Xfinity as well. And we'll get into that also later on here in the show. But before we get into any of that, as always, I want to give a shout out to our wonderful Patreon supporters, Colin, Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you all so much for continuing to invest in what we do here at the Grid Network. And if you like what you see tonight, you can consider joining them through the link in the description box below, or if you would rather make a one-time contribution to our work instead, if you're watching on YouTube, we have a super chat feature now enabled, as well as a link to buy me a coffee in the description box below as well. Any amount will help us continue to grow what we're trying to build here at Grid Network and help get us to a track on site on a more regular basis next year as we finish out 2024 and look ahead to 2025. Now, Brandon, like I mentioned, I want to start with the Cup Series race and the results here. And again, you can go back and rewatch the wrap-up show yesterday. Joe Samaniego gave his thoughts on the Cup Series race at Las Vegas. But I think, Brandon, a lot of people had a feeling that this might happen once we got the news of Alex Bowman's disqualification, putting Joey Logano back into the round of 8. And even season Logano lives on. He wins Las Vegas. Kind of surprisingly, Christopher Bell looked like he had a dominant car of a day, but it's Logano who gets the win, and he is now locked into the championship 4, despite being, according to Racing Reference's non-playoff standings table, the 15th driver on that list in terms of total points scored throughout the year with no resets. So, Brandon, in light of that, regardless of what you think about Joey Logano, regardless of what you think about an elimination-style playoff bracket, I want to talk specifically about win and you're in for a second here. Should the win and you're in aspects of the playoffs, maybe not even just to get into the playoffs, but once we start the playoffs, should it just be a straight-up points battle to advance through the rounds of 16 to 12 to 8 to the championship 4? Or do you like the win and you're in aspect of it if we're going to have this system and have this mentality that winning trumps everything?
That poses a really interesting question, and not one that hasn't been thought of before. I really do like that idea. Throughout your whole regular season, if you must have the win and you're in shenanigans, then have that in the regular season. And then when you get down to the playoffs, then it becomes sort of how the chase was, where, okay, we're going to reset you, and it's going to be a battle from then. Back then it was from New Hampshire to Miami. We're gonna battle this thing out, and who's going to chase the cup and who's going to be the champion. That was pretty unbroken in my opinion, but There are some exciting moments. I'm sort of on. I hate to be on the fence, Ben, but I'm sort of on the fence whenever I get a good moment of someone winning and punching their ticket in the round of 12 or the round of 8, going in, punching their ticket to Phoenix. It makes some compelling storylines here and there, and sometimes it produces some dopey moments. And this would be an example, in my opinion, of one of those dopey moments. Joey Logano, he's been going through a roller coaster of emotions, has he not? The last 2 weeks, he was out at the Roval. Lo and behold, later on, Alex Bowman's car had a weight issue, and he is removed from playoff contention. They put the next guy in. Joey Logano finds out he's in, and then he does exactly what he needs to do coming into the beginning of the round of 8. Go to Sin City and take the checkered flag. You can't fault a great driver, a 2-time champion in this league for doing what he has to do. And it was a great show, but I mean, it was pretty dopey though, that you can go from 0 to hero, and then he's going to Phoenix. And I also don't like, some of those dopey moments. It makes me just kind of cringe of like, he's guaranteed for Phoenix. And just like, I don't like when drivers have a set amount of races where they can just set on cruise control. It doesn't matter for them at all. It'd be much more, that's the argument for it would be much more compelling if you did have a full for the playoffs part of the season. It matters for each driver that's eligible for the playoffs every single race, instead of, these 2 or 3 drivers are on cruise control, but we got to watch the bubble. We've got to watch these guys because they're the ones that are fighting for their playoff lives. So yeah, little black and white on this one.
I want to say this directly before I give my thoughts here. I understand in the Latford system the racing would be different, right? You don't get the Hail Melon move in a straight up points battle, right? And I guess that's why some people like the system and everything. Yeah. I understand the racing would be slightly different. The results would be slightly different when you look at the non-playoff standings, or what if we still had the Winston Cup format or any format like we tallied them up in 1975. I get it. I get the argument that it's a waste of time, because in some ways it is, because we're not going back to that. I understand all of that. Okay. But when you can look at the results throughout the season, you can look at somebody's performance throughout the season. Like Kevin Harvick in 2020, I think is the most obvious recent example, right? Of somebody who just went out and, he already had his one win to get into the playoffs, and he just kept racking them off, and he had 9 wins total, and he doesn't even get to the championship 4, even with all those playoff points that were building and got stacked up, and he had a second place finish in that round of 8, and he doesn't even advance to the championship 4. And then you have a guy like Joey Logano this year, and again, like you said, Brandon, no disrespect, right? He did everything he needed to do with the system that he has been given. It's not his fault. Hendrick Motorsports goofed on Alex Bowman's weight. It's not his fault that they got disqualified and they left him back in. But Steven Stump tweeted this out yesterday. With 3 races left, Logano will end 2024 with the fewest top 5s and top 10s since his JGR tenure. He last raced for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2012. He was 22 years old. That's how long it's been. He has 6 top 5s all year, 11 top 10s. You have to go all the way back, I guess, to 2012 when he had 12 top 10s, only 2 top 5s in 2012. 2011 before that, only 4 top 5s and 6 top 10s. So it has statistically been the worst season in terms of average finish, average performance. I know he's got 3 wins, but in terms of average performance, his weakest season since he joined Team Penske. But because, he got hot at the right time, he got a little bit lucky with only doing the bare minimum to get into the round of 8, actually really doing less than the bare minimum when you think about it, because he didn't get into the round of 8. And the only reason he's in the round of 8 is because Hendrick Motorsports goofed on the weight of Alex Bowman's car and that led to a disqualification that got him back in. But all you have to do is win one race, regardless of how you got here or how many playoff points you have. So I don't know. I feel like even playoff supporters have to look at this and, number one, understand why people aren't a huge fan of this system. But number two, I think you have to acknowledge that it's not perfect. And it can lead to, what was the word you used, Brandon? Dopey situations here?
Yeah, dopey things.
Just think about this. If Logano wins this title, I don't know. This is the goofiest championship on the Cup side of things since Kyle Busch, 2015.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, that was, and again, not remarkable comeback.
Not taking that championship away.
Yeah. I mean, he's a deserving champ. Everything that he went through that year, I mean, he was concerned that it might be a career-ending injury. But, I mean, you still look at that and you say, I mean, that's the first time since, it has to be the first time since the 60s, right? That somebody didn't run the full schedule and still walked away with a championship. And what other series could you do that? Only run, high 60s, low 70s percentage of the season and still win the championship. And I mean, people talk about Jimmy Johnson in 2016, and he kind of got hot at the right time, and I get that, but I feel like he still ended up like 8th in the standings if you just tally up the points. Probably the weakest overall performance of his 7 titles, but again, take nothing away from him. He went out and Carl Edwards threw that block, and I mean, it's the system that we have now, right? More power to the drivers that take advantage of it. But I can't look at Joey Logano's season here. And honestly, we'll get into this in just a moment. I can't look at AJ Allmendinger's season in the Xfinity Series compared to how he ran in 2022. He had a Kevin Harvick-like 2020 season just a couple of years ago in Xfinity, and the same thing happened to him. He had 5 races all year where he wasn't inside the top 10 of the race results. But 2 of those 5 races came in the round of 8. And even with all those playoff points and all those good results that led up to that round of 8, it wasn't enough. And he is now, by virtue of this win at Las Vegas and what otherwise has been a down year for him, he's now guaranteed to finish higher in the standings this year than he did in 2022. If you asked anybody which year was a better season overall for AJ Allmendinger, and you look at the final standings and you see he's 4th, he's minimum 4th this year, he was 5th in 2022. If that's all you look at, you would think, oh, well, I guess he was stronger this year, right? But anybody that lived through both of those seasons will tell you, I mean, Colleague was on another level just a couple of years back. I mean, how many times have we talked on this show about, what is going on with Colleague Racing? Why can't they find the speed that they had just a couple of years ago? They had this meteoric rise, and now they've kind of come back crashing down to earth. And how can they recapture that magic? I don't know. It leaves me, even as somebody who's, I mean, again, if you watch this show, you forgive me for getting a little bit personal here for a second. I've been a AJ Allmendinger fan for many years. He was my childhood favorite. I've got all 3 of his diecasts right here behind me from his Cup wins, but I can't, and I know I'm not supposed to anyway, because I'm in a different stage in my life now, doing this show with you, Brandon, doing my work for Brock Beard and LastCard.info. I can't actively root for drivers in the same way that I used to. I can't actively cheerlead for them on the air. But even the kid inside of me, can't look at what happened at Vegas this weekend and be as happy as he'd like to be, because, I'm so, I guess, stuck in my ways is what the people that disagree with me on this system would say I am. But I'm sorry. I believe in the integrity of a full season championship. And it doesn't matter if it's the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series or what we just saw yesterday with the Cup Series. I'm going to die on that hill above any other hill. And I'm not a fan of stage racing, but if you want your stage points, you can have them. If you want unlimited attempts at overtime, you can have them. I'm sorry. This is the number one hill that I'm going to die on in this sport, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
You shouldn't have to. I mean, Colleague was just,
I don't know, Brad. I mean, Pete Pistone's been on the morning drive for the last couple of years now, saying if you're still clinging to a full season title, it's been this way for 2 decades, guys. You really need to get to a group to try to work your way through that, because it's not going anywhere. Like, I mean, that's the mentality that some of these people have. And then what I find so ironic is that we'll turn around the next day, we'll see the ratings are down another 5 or 6% year to year. And the same people that said, well, if you guys don't like it, you just got to get over yourselves or quit watching at a certain point. And then they turn around and are like, man, we've got some really good racing going on right now. Why are the ratings down?
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe the people that you said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Maybe they actually stopped watching. It's a possibility.
I still have a serious problem, Ben, when you have someone like AJ Allmendinger or Joey Logano, which we're talking about both of them here on the show today, where their performance, either the performance or the lack thereof, does not reflect where they finish at the end of the year, as far as placement for the end of the year. That just shows a fundamental flaw.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's, again, what have I said on the show before as well? It's not just the champion. Harrison Burton had a phenomenal career-defining moment at Daytona this year. And like I said, I'm thrilled for him. I'm thrilled that the Wood brothers finally got to celebrate their 100th win. It's such and Jeff Burton being in the booth. I mean, unbelievable moment. Heartwarming moment. That moment alone should not leapfrog him 18 spots in the point standings. Harrison Burton has not been a 16th place in the standings driver this year. That, I don't think saying that takes away from his Daytona win. That's one individual race. Where you finish in the standings should be representative of your full season. Martin Truex Jr. was top 5 in the standings just a couple of years ago, really, in 2022. But that was the first year of a next-gen car. We had all this parity. We were getting all these different winners. And Ryan Blaney was just ahead of him. He was the lone other non-winner. I think he won the All-Star race. But it was down to Blaney and Truex for like the only spot to point your way in. And when you look at points, they were 2nd and 4th or something like that going into the final race of Daytona. And you're telling me Martin Truex Jr. is locked out of any position in the points higher than 17th? That's the highest he can finish in points. And we're going to look back and say, oh, Truex, he was 17th in points. He must have had a really down year, really uncharacteristically bad year. He had a great year. He just did everything but win a race. And that plays such an emphasis. There's such an emphasis placed on that it leads to wacky situations in the standings like this, where you have guys. Again, forget the championship for a second. The championship's obviously the most notable, most prestigious part of it. But you can look all up and down the standings and say, like, I think Kyle Busch last year. I think Kyle Busch, RCR kind of came back down to earth after their hot start after he joined last year. I think he was something like 13th in points last year at the end of the playoffs when it was all said and done. And I don't know. I feel like, Busch won 3 races. He was very strong at the start of the year. He probably should have been a few positions higher in points than that. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of examples off the top of my head here, but it's not just the issue of who the champion is. It's all throughout the standings for me. And again, I'm sorry. That's the one hill that I will die on above all the other ones.
Yeah, I just go back to there's something fundamentally flawed whenever, like, I think of Kevin Harvick's run in 2021, like maybe it was the last year of the Gen 6. Where it was whatever year he had the most races won, most victories of the year. 2020. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he had the most victories of the year and didn't make. What happened? It was
he didn't make the championship. He had not
even the championship 4.
Yeah, I think it was Kansas, I believe. It was the and again that's a whole. We could spend a whole another 20 minutes on the package that we used for the final years of the Gen 6 car. He was clearly wasn't that Joey Logano? I think that was Joey Logano. I mean, ironically enough, it all comes back. He couldn't pass Logano, clearly had a faster car, but he ended up 2nd. So Logano locks himself into the championship 4. Harvick finishes 2nd. Then he hits the wall at the Texas race that was delayed for like 3 days. Then he goes to Martinsville and last lap desperation effort ends up spinning out. And again, in an unbelievable season. And he even had guys on social media and on YouTube saying, like, look, I can't stand Harvick. He's one of my most hated drivers, but there's no reason he shouldn't be the champion this year. He has been clearly the most impressive driver. So, but I don't know. I guess people get bored with, having the title decided a couple of weeks early. That's just where we are now.
Or, just having the title decided with your best driver all year. Just the fact that your best driver all year is not guaranteed to be the champion. So, but that's just not how the game is played anymore. Like your best driver all year can finish third in the championship or finish fifth, not even make the championship four. It just, that still has boggled me since we've been doing this. And it's not that it takes away from the excitement. It's still fun. It's still fun when we get Game 7 moments, but you can't have them all the time.
Well, but that's what made, races like 92 Atlanta so special. And I mean, you want to talk about multiple drivers going, I mean, there were 6 guys that day that had a shot at the title. There were 3 main contenders and 3 more long shots, but
that's more than you get with the championship 4.
Yeah.
You'd have 6.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think, I mean, I want to open the,
that's like a blue, but also to their credit, that's like a blue moon scenario where, that rarely ever happened,
Yeah. But again, like how many years can you look back and say, man, I don't know, that Earnhardt, I don't know, but he really deserved that championship. I don't know, but he was really the bad. Jeff Gordon, I don't know. I mean, I know he won 13 races, but maybe I mean, it's just every year that we had somebody lock the championship up early. I mean, okay, yeah, maybe that makes the last race or two less intriguing in the championship battle, but what did Ross Chastain say just a few years ago? I'm trying to win a cup race, and everybody out there is still going to go out there and do the same thing, and the fans are still going to watch, and there's not going to be anybody disputing or questioning the validity of Earnhardt or Gordon or Labonte or anybody else during that era's championships. If Joey Logano wins this championship, again, I'm not one of those people. As strongly as I believe in a full season championship, I'm not going to question the validity of Logano's title because he played according to the rules that he was given and that everybody else was given. It's not different for anybody. More power to him if he can win this championship. But I can't fault other fans, other people within this sport, within this community that would look at this and think, you know what, that's just, I'm not a fan of that. And I sometimes wish that people, and again, it's not everybody, but there are, the people that defend this system, that like this system, can at least understand why others do not, if we're going to continue to do this. And I know we're going to continue to do this because we're not going back at this point. It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're just going to be forging a way forward. And, but I understand it's been here long enough. Yes, you kind of need, if you're going to keep enjoying the sport, you kind of need to assimilate and get with the program. But still, you're entitled, Ben, you're still entitled to, regardless of what others tell you, you're still entitled to your ideas of what it could be. So,
yeah. Well, and again, that's the one problem that I had above everything else. And it fired me up so much that I've made, you can go to my channel. Maybe I'll if I remember, I'll put a card here on the stream replay or, the part of the show that we clip or whatever. But it actually fired me up enough that I made a response video to listening to that episode of The Morning Drive last year. And what bothered me more than anything was that, well, I think we'll catch up on the chat here more in just a moment, but this get to a group line that Pete Pistone used. And, respect Pete Pistone's opinions, respect his right to like this system and defend the system. But
he's in one behind the mic. It's called Winston Cup Anonymous.
Yeah, but that was the only thing that really I had a major issue with, was like, if you, I get why you like this system. I get that you think it's more entertaining and forces people to get hot at the right time and go out and perform at their best at the end of the year. Like I don't like it myself. I get why you like it though. Can you extend that same level of understanding at least? I mean, that's what bothers me. So
yeah, it's a societal thing too. You can't think too hard on it.
Yeah,
it's a societal thing to think. I can have my opinion, but you're not. Since yours is wrong, in my opinion, you're not allowed to have yours.
That's it. Yeah, and I mean, again, I'd welcome people if they're watching this right now. If you want to make a case, I know you're kind of character limited here in the chat, or if you're watching on the replay, if you want to make a case for why you like the system, go ahead, be my guest. I want to hear that. I want to challenge you all to make your case, and we can have that conversation and have that back and forth. If you're going to just tell me, get over yourself, get to a group and recognize we're not going back, then that tells me that I'm not worth your time to even have a conversation with. And so I'm not going to extend that same grace and that time to you. which is fine. If you want to have that conversation, we don't have to have that conversation, but you at least have to be open to that idea of that back and forth for me to be able to engage with you there.
I'm feeling a little more on the fence now about it as far as playoffs or points. I like your notion of winning you're in for the season, and then go back to points, reset points in the playoffs. I mean, there's elements of both of these that I enjoy, but
yeah. Well, but again, that's just me trying to come to the negotiating table here a little bit, and just like, okay, I understand we're going to have this system probably until the end of time in some way, shape, or form. But, and by the way, playoff points, that's an improvement. I think a lot of people forget that because it's been 8 years now. But the hard resets that we did from 14 to 16, I mean, my goodness, like there were 12 drivers tied for the points lead after the final round of 16 race. Like, at least we have playoff points to carry over now that give you a little bit of an edge. So like I can be honest, I can acknowledge like this is better than what we had for those first 3 years of this system. Mm-hmm. But I still like, can you bargain with me a little bit here? Can we make it a little less ridiculous in this way over there? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it kind of surprises me that they haven't tweaked the system in 8 years now, because that was kind of the pattern. Like every 3 or 4 years, we're going to expand it a little bit, or we're going to introduce this new twist on things like the wild card for race winners from 11th to 20th that we had for a couple of years. It's kind of surprised me that we're 8 years into this now. I don't know. Maybe we'll get a surprise this offseason with the new TV deal coming in like we did with the in-season tournament. Maybe that's going to be the perfect time to spice things up a little bit more, but we'll just have to wait and see. I understand. Again, I totally get why people like the system, but it's just not for me. And I think the reaction that you've seen over the last 24 hours or so, it's not for a lot of people. Let's catch up on the chat here before we move on to the Xfinity Series. Good to see a day in the life in the chat here again. I love that the Logano even year pattern continues. And yeah, really one of the more remarkable coincidences here in this sport, even in a year that's been a down year by Logano's standards or Penske's standards. He has still found a way to get into the championship four. Don't hate the player, hate the game, hate the system here. More power to Joey Logano. We'll see what he can do the next few weeks, and when it comes time for Phoenix, if he can capture his third championship. Adam Lemery's Tyler Reddick flipping and continuing to pit road. That was a wild moment for sure.
Yes, it was. That's another instance, Adam, of they're probably going to put artificial turf there here soon. The transition from that natural grass. Well, it's not natural grass in Las Vegas, is it? But you know what I mean. You're putting the natural sod down with the Legends Oval there, and then going right back to it. You're going to have that issue at all the 1.5 miles that are motor speedways, because basically all of them have that Legends Oval put in place for their Legends cars. I mean, the turf is, not the worst thing in the world at Charlotte. It still looks okay, but I have not been a fan. Just a side topic. I've not been a fan of removing grass everywhere we go. And when we go back to the argument when we were talking about the Charlotte Roval of just making race boundaries with walls and grass, I know it makes it safer, but also you run into different problems like the Bubba Wallace and William Byron thing there coming off the front stretch chicane. But then also you get things like this. Tyler Reddick, man, it's scary to watch. And it's kind of like Ryan Preece's deal last year at the Coke Zero 400, just on a much smaller scale, of course. But just, having trouble with that and flipping the thing over.
Yeah, well, don't be careful, Brandon. Don't get me started on track limits after that F1 race yesterday. I'm saving that for my final thoughts here because again, not on the wrap-up shows often these
days. The Americas track limits. What?
Track limit, yeah. Oh man, that's
it's such an airport of a track. I know it's got a lot of elevation, but man, it's such an airport.
Yeah,
it's like
that's why I'm saving it for the end there, because if we go off about it now, it's just going to be a whole nother tangent there.
We'll save it.
Yeah, we'll save it there. Any idea how Bowman's car was underweight? I don't.
It was all water weight. It was all water weight. Alex was just sweating bullets.
I don't know about that. I think it was a little bit. I think it was like 17 pounds or something, right? I mean, it was not like, just a small amount.
No,
that's why they didn't. That's why they didn't appeal it. Was because I think they knew that it was clear enough. I did see there was one part of the race where somebody went back to the video and they thought they saw something falling out of Bowman's car, like a piece of debris or something like that. I don't know if correlation doesn't always equal causation in that regard. I don't know off the top of my head, but I do remember hearing that it was a fairly substantial number, and so Hendrick really saw no point in appealing the penalty and dragging it out because it was a clear and obvious situation there. Our own Joe Samaniego, good to see you, Joe. Joey Logano could repeat his last championship, would be his second title in 3 years, I guess, and Penske would be going for 3 in a row with Ryan Blaney winning it last year. Focus on Phoenix and be hard to beat, but Adam brings up a good point here as well. Christopher Bell's got to be pretty fired up after this weekend, but maybe it ends up like a Kevin Harvick 2020 situation for him, where he comes up just short in the opening race and then struggles in the next two and can't get through to that championship 4. But we'll wait and see. Christopher Bell's done a pretty good job of getting to the championship 4 the last couple of years, so we'll see if he can repeat that this season here.
Dangerous in Phoenix.
Yeah.
If he can get back.
Exactly. Yep. Good to see Matthew Owens in the chat here as well. He actually did less than the bare minimum, made me legit laugh out loud. That's a good new line to use. I guess we'll see if it pops up in any of Matthew's tweets here in the near future. Carl Edwards through the block. Rick Allen forgot how to properly put English words in order. Yeah, I mean,
leave him alone. He's on the Xfinity series now.
I know. Yes, I will say this again about Rick. As much grief as we give him, that race, that call when Jimmy won his 7th, that is by a mile the best call of his NBC career. I don't know, maybe there's some Truck Series stuff in the Speed Channel days that would rival it, but the historical significance and importance of that moment to get that call right and bringing Petty and Earnhardt into the conversation. I mean, that is by far his best NBC call.
If you go to the NASCAR Hall of Fame and Rick Allen has a little piece there should be a little button you can hit and you can hear that call. That should be his defining moment. That
is his defining moment. What happened 10 laps before that with the Carl Edwards crash, unfortunately, not as legendary of a call there. And but again, you're right. We'll leave it there. We can leave.
We're human.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. I have to say I don't know. I think he might be. We'll see what the CW does next year. I would feel bad for him if he's out of a job entirely next year. As much as his style really hasn't been for me, I would hope that there could be a play, like, I don't know, maybe one of the new studio shows or something. He could have a position there.
I would much rather have him on a studio show. I think that would be a perfect fit.
With Max or Turner, all these new shows that we've got coming out next year, these weekly shows. I don't know. I think Rick Allen's got a great voice. I think that he would definitely have a place on one of those shows. It's just Rick in the booth sometimes. I don't know if he just hasn't gotten as good direction at NBC. But I don't know. Just again, not particularly my cup of tea, but my opinion doesn't matter as much as the executives at the networks do, and they see stuff that they like in him, and that's why he's been a part of our sport for so many years. So
I just want to say also on that same note, I want to say it like Benny Parsons. Man, oh man, I'm glad to have Alan Bestwick as the guy for 2025. We got that news actually. Potentially. Oh no.
There was we had I don't know if you caught Hinch's podcast this week, but he made light of the Oscar Piastri tweet meme and said, like, I understand without my permission, Jenna Fryer has put out a tweet suggesting that I am this is unconfirmed and I haven't agreed to a deal with Fox next year. So I guess
oh man.
Well, hey, I mean, I know Jenna Fryer's with the Associated Press, and I trust that she has some sources within the IndyCar paddock. Maybe it's just kind of an NDA thing, like he can't confirm it yet.
I would hope so.
I would hope,
we heard that rumor on the we heard that rumor on the USRN call for the Roval, and we were all excited about it, and that hurts a little bit that it was maybe a little premature, but I mean, Jenna has a pretty good track record. I would hope it's the truth.
All right, just a few more comments here. This will actually segue nicely into our Xfinity Series recap. Nicholas says AJ Allmendinger is going to win the Xfinity Series championship in 2024. We'll see. I don't know. He's got a shot at it. I will note that Phoenix historically has not been one of his better tracks, particularly in his Xfinity Series career here with Colleague Racing. But, sometimes you just have to make it to the championship 4 and have that shot. And then, if you nail the setup or, have the cards fall your way, being in that position can win you the championship. So he certainly got a shot at it. I don't know, but we'll wait and see how the rest of championship 4 plays out here. Justin Allgaier has been, we call him a Denny Hamlin of the Xfinity Series sometimes. Like, he's done everything but win the ultimate prize of the series here and win a championship. He would be tough to beat. And we've got some other. Cole Custer looking to defend his championship as well. There's some strong names in that Xfinity Series playoff grid still. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. Adam says Ryan Sieg will win an Xfinity Series race in 2025. That's given. I'll tell you what, man. If he keeps driving like he does right now, he and Sheldon Creed both, I would hope that at some point they could break through and get those wins here. But
poor Sheldon Creed.
Look, you just look at, Sieg closing in on Allmendinger and then having the late caution came out. I think he said in his post-race interview, he had the best long-run car and he needed that race to go green towards the end there. Just wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. But again, if he keeps driving like this, he's going to win a race eventually.
Need a few more laps.
Yes, he did. Nicholas says, well, I think the playoffs are okay, but I still don't like it either. It is what it is. And sure, I almost thought about quitting after 2014 because of what happened with Jeff Gordon. But again, that you want to make a comparison there to what I was just talking about with Allmendinger. Jeff Gordon 2014 versus Jeff Gordon 2015. If you only look at the final result in the standings, you would think 15 was a better year for him because he was higher up in the standings there. But again, anybody who watched those seasons, who remembers those seasons, can tell you that Jeff did not get a good start to his 2015 season and was only able to, get hot at the right time late in the year and then win that Martinsville race. And that is what propelled him into the championship 4. Ended up coming up just short in that race. But I think Jeff's 2014 season was much more statistically impressive as a whole than 2015 was. So, but again, that's just how the system works sometimes. You can have a down year compared to a year where, you were firing on all cylinders more consistently, but it's about getting hot at the right time and being on your best at the right time and advancing through this elimination system here. Mm-hmm. And Spidey Ditko, good to see you here as well. If AJ wins the championship, he's going to celebrate it like it's the last day on Earth there. I don't know if you saw a colleague change their profile picture to on Twitter or X rather to AJ celebrating that Vegas win, just going absolutely crazy there. He certainly knows how to celebrate these wins, and talk about a championship. I would imagine that's going to be a pretty memorable celebration if he can pull that off here in a few weeks. But
yeah, all of Avondale, Arizona will know what's going on if he's the one in victory lane.
They definitely will. So let's pull up these Xfinity Series results here for you. And Brandon, I guess the main question I just have to ask you here, given Allmendinger's season, given Colleague's season as a whole, I know SVG's won a few road course races, but was this a surprise to you? Allmendinger winning on 1.5 miles in a year where Colleague has not had the best performance compared to just a couple of years ago. And then how in the world did he make the championship 4 this year, but miss it in the year where he was racking up top 10s like they were going out of style in 2022?
Welcome to the playoffs. I don't know how else you explain that. He had a monster year in 2022. Our first year doing this show, we got to talk a lot about AJ. And coming into, they were trophy hunting in 2022 and some in 23, but 2024 has not been a pretty good trophy hunting year for Colleague Racing, and they aren't shy to admit it either. We've seen just the disappointment in AJ Allmendinger's face. I think it was a Road America interview. No, never mind. It was either Road America or Portland, maybe.
Road America would have maybe been last year, because I know that he skipped the Cup race to go do that one. But
okay,
I know when Joe talked to him at Portland, he was pretty disappointed.
That's the one I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Okay, Portland, yes, our own grid coverage. Just the heartbreak in his face, just you could tell it was more than just that race of disappointment going on. He was just really melancholy there, and so yeah, I did not expect that at all. He's your road ringer, and anything else, it's he might be able to be in the top 10, but to be able to pull out like that in Las Vegas, that's not a track and driver pairing that you'd put in your bingo card. I mean, the odds, I'm sure, were probably a big payout for him. So, and not to say that just because it's Las Vegas. I'm just saying any given weekend, that's not really a pairing that you probably would put together. I'm not a betting man by any means, but if you were, but yeah, did not expect that at all.
Yeah, he did. I believe it was 21. He won the spring race of Las Vegas in the Xfinity Series. But you're right, Brandon. I think if anybody was thinking AJ was going to win a playoff race, they probably would have told you it would have been last week at the Roval, a race again that he had never lost in this series, and a race weekend where he hadn't come away with the trophy. He had rather come away with a trophy for the last 5 years in a row in some way, shape, or form. Of course, he won the Cup race there last year. So again, all credit to Sam Mayer for pulling that one out. Your heart still breaks for Parker Kligerman there.
Yeah.
And Shane Van Gisbergen, I'm sure, had to be feeling a little bit disappointed being left out on those old tires as well. But Allmendinger still comes across the line second. That's more than good enough to get him through to the round of 8, and then he goes out. And again, it's a situation of just being in the right place at the right time, getting hot at the right time, and he now will have a shot to race for a championship in just a few weeks' time at Phoenix. So we'll see if he can avenge the disappointment of 2022 and maybe walk it off with a championship there. Maybe walk off his entire Xfinity Series career, because, of course, we know he's going back to the Cup Series next year full-time with Colleague, and Colleague's going to have a fresh lineup for the most part on their Xfinity Series side of things as well.
That they will.
Again, yeah, this is going to be an interesting few weeks for Allmendinger and that team, and how much can they relax the next couple of weeks and try to start focusing on putting all their eggs into the Phoenix basket, or is that not their style? Are they going to go out and try to maintain this momentum and instead of trying to test certain things out or test certain setups, are they just going to try to continue to trophy hunt for the rest of the season here over these next few races and maintain that streak going into Phoenix?
I would venture to say, knowing Matt Colleague, like they're going to keep, and knowing AJ Allmendinger, I think you never guarantee to be back in this position. I think they're going to keep on trophy hunting, and of course they're going to put a little more extra care on Phoenix, but I would not expect him to come out of the gate tame and cautious.
Sure.
For these races leading up to Phoenix.
Yeah. Relax probably isn't the best word for it, but I guess what I'm trying to say is they can sleep well the next 2 weeks.
Sure, yeah, they can have fun.
There's 7 other guys here that can't say that. So, and maybe somebody else who is going to have a hard time saying that is probably Ryan Sieg here. Again, coming up just short here. So, Brandon, I got a couple questions for you here when it comes to Sieg. Whose runner-up streak has been more painful to watch? Racking up second place finishes left and right, still looking for that first win. Is it Ryan Sieg or is it Sheldon Creed? And then did Sammy Smith inadvertently, or maybe not inadvertently, with his stopping on the track to bring out that last caution, did that cost Ryan Sieg the win? Do you think he had the long run car to win this race had that last caution not come out?
I'll go ahead and get the Sammy Smith question out of the way. I don't really know about what his intentions were, or if that was a malfunction for Sammy. Because I mean, if he had any sort of vengeance on Ryan Sieg or anyone in the front, I don't know of it, and I don't know what the purpose of that would be, or to help a junior motorsport teammate. Like,
yeah, well, I think that's what some people are saying, maybe to bring Allgaier back into the fight on a late race restart, but
perhaps
I don't know. But that was, I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say, but that was at the forefront of his mind.
I don't like to scope intentions that I don't really know. But yeah, who is more painful for the runner-up streak? For me, I guess it's Sheldon Creed, because I guess I've been following it a little more closely. But I mean, Ryan Sieg, correct me if I'm wrong, he's been around a little bit longer than Sheldon Creed. in the Xfinity series. You know, he's had that long tenure with the 39, and the whole slew of sponsors that have gone through that organization. Let's not even go there. But
there's one in particular that I think
leaving that alone. Leaving that alone. He's it depends on who you've been following more closely, I guess. I mean, Ryan Sieg has been there longer, and hasn't always had the performance that he's been showing here lately. But I mean, Sheldon Creed is, I think, since he's been coming into the Premier Series, he's into the Premier plural series is what I'm saying. Is he's consistently shown some prowess. So to see that he's still, and his second place finishes have been a lot more frequent for my own observations. So I think it's a lot more it's easier to say that's a lot more painful, because it's kind of like a little more akin to Riley Herbst last year before he got it done at this same event at Las Vegas. And here Sheldon Creed is still sitting without a win.
I think I'm going to go with Sieg here to answer this question myself. And the reason I say that, Brandon, is part of what you were saying about how long Ryan Sieg has been doing this. Sure. And you cannot compare the resources that his team has compared to the likes of what Sheldon Creed has had at RCR, at JGR the last couple of years. So I think I get what you're saying about Creed being more at the forefront of our minds in 2024 and him having more opportunities and ultimately more second place finishes, I think, as a result. When you look at Ryan Sieg, second at Iowa in 2017, I think that was one that had a lot of underdog. I mean, I think Ross Chastain was still driving for JD at the time, and he got a top 5 out of that race. So there was some weird strategy there that I think benefited some of those smaller teams. But that was the race where I think Hermie Sadler said in the closing laps he wanted to interview the crew chief, and he was told the crew chief's also the spotter, so he's we can't get to him right now. But that shows you how far his team has come over the last couple of years here. Second at Talladega in 2020, and then of course the Heartbreaker, one of the closest finishes we've ever seen to Sam Mayer at Texas earlier this year, and then just a couple of weeks ago at Talladega, and then for the second time in 3 races here, second to Allmendinger at Las Vegas. So. But again, you want to talk about a journeyman, an independent. Ryan Sieg has been around with his own family team, mind you, since 2009 in the Truck Series. If you remember Austin Dillon's win at the inaugural race at Eldora, that was don't get me wrong, fully an RCR entry, RCR truck, but they borrow the number 39 team's entry and owner's points. That's why Dillon used the number 39 that night. That was Ryan Sieg's and RSS Racing's truck. Their number that they borrowed for that race. And then Sieg, over the next couple of years, they transitioned, moved up to the Xfinity Series. He made a couple of Cup Series starts with BK Racing in 2017 as well, but it's mostly made his home in the Xfinity Series. And like you mentioned, Brandon, just trying to nickel and dime his way to, continuing to build his program up, taking on, a whole number of sponsors over the years and a whole number of different partners over there. And, again, even just this weekend was in the 28 car because they're thinking about owners' points, trying to get that car in the best position that they can for their program in 2025. So, I got to tell you, even as somebody who, whose childhood favorite driver was AJ Allmendinger, this was one of those rare instances. It reminded me of Tommy Joe Martin's trying to hold off AJ for that stage win at Richmond all those years ago. I'm still a fan of the underdogs at heart. That's why I became an AJ fan when he was with Red Bull all those years ago. And your heart, you can't help but hurt for Ryan Sieg to see him come so close once again and finish in second. But again, I don't know. I mean, if I had to place my bets, I would say, I would expect Sheldon Creed to have, a better chance just based on his equipment and how many times he's come close this year. But I don't know, man. Ryan Sieg has 2 second place finishes in the last 3 races here. The way he's been driving, who's to say he can't go out and win Homestead or Martinsville over the next couple of weeks himself?
Yeah, I agree. But I just see that it's more painful whenever you have the equipment. It's more ironic when you have the equipment to do it. Sure. You've had 2 blockbuster teams you should have already been able to do it, and you still can't. I think that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's exactly.
It's been very, very, very frustrating at times too. So.
It certainly has. And again, you only have to go back a few years. We were having this conversation with Daniel Hemrick as well. He ultimately broke that streak and broke through with his championship. Unfortunately for Sheldon Creed, he's not going to be able to do that this year on the Xfinity Series side of things. But, we'll see. Again, you would think if they keep driving this well, eventually it almost just has to happen by accident, right? You can only threaten so many times before you end up breaking through here. But I don't know. We'll see. All credit to Sheldon Creed all credit to Sheldon Creed as well for how many times he's put himself in that position. But Ryan Sieg as well, obviously for what he's done with not near the resources or the budget of the top teams in the Xfinity Series, but building his program up with his family-run team to the point where they can take the fight to the Gibbses and Childresses and the colleagues of the world on their best day here. So good to see that. All right. Well, before we move on here to recapping a couple of final events this weekend, we got some news today that I think was one of the worst kept secrets, all but confirmed. I think we kind of knew that this driver was on this path. William Sawalich confirmed full-time for Joe Gibbs Racing, the Xfinity Series here next year in 2025. So, Brandon, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Sawalich based on his ARCA performance, moving up, kind of taking the Ty Gibbs road here, doing the same thing, skipping over trucks entirely, going full-time Xfinity racing.
He's going to win next year. He's going to be dangerous. He's going to be maybe not as a big of a threat of a young phenom as Ty Gibbs was when he entered in, but I think he'll be a maybe a multi-time winner threat in his first year. That's just scoping out based off just raw talent we've seen in the up and coming ranks. That's at least what I think. But yeah, worst kept secret. Going to Joe Gibbs, it's perfect fit for him, and looking forward to not only him but the others around him, like Connor Zilic, that are going to be making their way through as well.
Yeah, I've got to say, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins next year. I know he's going to have the equipment, and I do think he has the talent to get it done. But I think with Sawalich, I expect it to take a little bit more time. Like, I don't think he's going to pull a Ty Gibbs or Connor Zilic and go and literally win in his first start. I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to warm up to the series. If his truck series starts are any indication, I do still think, as strong as he's been in ARCA, we saw the same thing with Sammy Smith in that car. We saw the same thing, obviously, with Ty Gibbs. We've seen the same thing with Tanner Gray when he's gotten in that car this year. I mean, it's just, you can't compare resources of the Cup program running an ARCA car compared to some of the other competition in that series. So now he's going to have that competition in Xfinity next year for sure. And again, certainly not putting him win past him, but I think it's going to be more of a Sammy Smith type sort of deal here, where he might be able to get a win here or there, maybe even a couple. But will he be a championship contender right out of the gate like Ty Gibbs was in many respects? Will he win on his debut? That, I think, might be a little bit of a stretch, but we'll just have to wait and see. He might surprise us as well. All right, let's move on here, cover a couple more things before we wrap up the show tonight. INDY NXT had their annual Chris Griffiths testing session at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And congratulations to Myles Rowe on winning, I guess you could say, setting the fastest time through the test. Of course, not a huge amount of prestige here for coming out on top of this leaderboard, but it is nice to see his name in the first position here again. Friend of the show, been on Life on the Grid a couple of years ago. So maybe a positive momentum boost for him going into the offseason. Hailie Deegan, meanwhile, anchoring the field down in 22nd. So, Brandon, I certainly have some thoughts on how Deegan's test went. I'm sure we'll have more on the next episode of Women in Motorsports as well. But I'm just going to want to get your reactions here. Any names on this list that stand out to you? Any surprises? Anything that you want to mention in regards to these test results?
Nothing really besides, Myles Rowe to be expected, quote unquote, winning the test. But I gotta point the elephant in the room to the one on the bottom. That's Hailie Deegan stepping her way in for the first time. And well, you've got the stat here in the lineup if you want to go ahead and say it.
Yeah, well, and again, I just want to echo what you said. Myles Rowe, a job well done. And you've got some good names on this list as well. Kyle Coletta, coming over from kind of the F3 European background. Good to see him making some progress here as well. Dennis Halger, great run for him. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of hard to ignore, especially given how much, press it got when this move was announced. Hailie Deegan down there in 22nd. Now, again, I know that some people are probably going to say, well, we'll pull up the 2022 results, and Jamie Chadwick was slowest in his testing session. And again, I would argue didn't have as much of a learning curve, certainly a substantial learning curve nonetheless. But when you look at these 2022 test results here, Jamie Chadwick is down there at the bottom in 16th place. But if you look at the margin between Chadwick and the next slowest driver, Josh Pearson, it's just under half a second, a 117, basically a 117.2 compared to a 117.63 for Chadwick. So while she was the slowest of all the 16 entries, she was still well within the 107% rule, so to speak, well within what you would expect, the times from this test session rather, to be here. These are the 2024 results with the time field there as well. You can see Myles Rowe ran a 1:15.18. We go all the way to 10,000ths of a second here in Indy NXT. So we'll simplify it for everybody here a little bit, but a 1:15.18 for Myles Rowe, a 1:16.73 essentially for Tommy Smith. So that's about just a little bit more than a second and a half from first to 21st. And then you have Hailie Deegan, who ran a 1:18.9, which is a little bit more than 2 seconds back from a time that Tommy Smith set, and almost 4 seconds behind Myles Rowe. Now, of course, I'm not saying that Deegan needs to be up where Myles Rowe is, or midway through this leaderboard even. I'm not even saying she needs to be any higher than last place, because like we talked about, it's going to take some time. It's going to be a long learning curve here. But I would be lying if I said I am not a little bit concerned about the fact that the gap from first to 21st is smaller than the gap from 21st to 22nd. I think we have to be fair. We have to be objective. And I think if you just look at the times, you don't forget the driver names for a second here. Any driver in that 22nd spot being that far off the pace, I think would raise some eyebrows. So I don't know. It's still very early. She's like we said, she's going to have some time to continue to learn and adapt. But, with how many laps she ran, I would have hoped again, to see her a little bit closer to the rest of the pack in this test session here.
And it's not the car. I mean, she's with HMD Motorsports. I mean,
yeah.
It's a 2 second gap. That's like walking into a pro lobby and trying to keep up with the fast ones. I mean, where they're all so close together, and then here you are with not just tenths off, you're seconds off. And just stepping into the world of open wheel, I mean, there's the caveat there, and you got to wait on. It wasn't announced too long ago, and now here she is at the test. But I mean, a lot of learning to do for sure. But it is a little concerning, even this far out, when it's so far off the rest of the 21 in the test field.
Yeah, well, and again, to be completely fair, that is, Brandon, the example that you used. That is kind of what she's doing, I think, in many respects. She is coming from a completely different discipline, completely different form of motor racing into a completely new environment for her. So again, I feel bad saying it. I'm not surprised that she was last. I was kind of expecting her to be 22nd on the grid here, or on the result sheet. But I am. And again, I know we have to keep our expectations in check here and give her some time to continue to adapt. But the margin, how far off even 21st that she was, you can't read too much into testing times and things like that. But it does concern me a little bit. So we won't know for sure until we get a couple of races in and under our belt here in 2025. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a little bit of concern there in regards to what the final times were. So, of course, we'll leave it there for now. We'll keep an eye on how Hailie Deegan's career continues to develop in Indy NXT in 2025. One final list of results I want to go through here tonight. The Modified Tour was back this weekend. They had an event in North Wilkesboro and a star-studded lineup as well. You see Bobby Labonte, the Hall of Famer, back there as well, finishing in 8th. Ryan Newman also in the field, finishing 13th. But Justin Bonsignor picked up yet another win. It's 44th of his career, and he is now tied on the all-time wins list, with Reggie Ruggiero for second all-time with 44 wins. Still a long way to go to catch the great Mike Stefanik there with 74 victories in his illustrious Hall of Fame career. But Justin Bonsignor pulls off yet another victory here in the those INDY NXT results. There we go, modified tour here with another win, and he is now 10 points to the good in terms of a championship battle with just one race to go in that series as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. And when it comes time for Martinsville, we'll report back the results of that championship. But Bonsignor could be well on his way to another championship. And I don't know, Brandon, with 44 wins, only the Hall of Famer, really, Mike Stefanik, still ahead of him. Got to think if Bonsignor can add another championship to his resume, he might be a future Hall of Famer one day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even without another one, he's already Hall of Fame status. I mean, Justin Bonsignor is the team odds. Whenever we bring up Whelen Modifieds, there's his name. We're always talking about him, no one else. I mean, that already is enough for me.
All right, well done to Justin Bonsignor, and like I said, we'll keep our eye on that as their season wraps up as well in the Modified Tour. In the meantime, we're going to wrap up our show here tonight. Brandon, I'll give you a chance to go first as always here. What is your one shining moment from this weekend in the world of motorsports?
I don't want to take yours away. So, and there's also I don't know. There's not many
you can
others.
Take mine.
No, it's okay. There's honestly not many others I can think of to pick this week for some reason. And I'm sorry for that. So I'm going to go with the one that might be a little humorous. I'm going to go with the Cup Series, and I'm going to go with Jimmie Johnson. He's out there doing his best, man. Come on. Give the man a break. 37th. Good grief. It's a mess over there at Legacy Motor Club, but you can't knock him for trying. Jimmie Johnson.
Was he really 37th this week?
He really was. Hold on. Nope. That is the standings. Excuse me.
That's the standings. Okay.
My mistake. Let's find his true spot. He was actually 28th.
28th. Okay. I was going to say, I thought he was.
I'm so sorry, Jimmy. No, you're 28th.
That's all right. No, he was. What is he? I think only 2 laps down. Is that right? I know my friend Brandon Panetto was going crazy on Instagram because it was like Jimmy actually finished a race and had relatively straightforward afternoon for once. But
yeah, don't have the laps here, laps down. But yeah. Blue Jimmy 48 fan though. He's always going to keep up with it for sure.
Yeah, he certainly was enjoying that. Yeah, there you go. 28th, 265 laps completed. And I guess, 37th in the stand. I mean, how many races has he run this year? Only, I think, 7 or 8, I think. So,
and he's going to run Phoenix too, right? That's his final one for the year. Yeah. I
think so. I don't remember what his schedule is off the top of my head, but
it's a pretty good scheme coming to Phoenix. They've got a good one.
Yeah, and again, I'm glad Jimmy is having fun. I mean, he's a I mean, I know people are saying like he's kind of ruining his legacy here. Richard Petty didn't win a race his final 8 years in Cup, right? I don't think that totally ruined or destroyed his championship legacy in the sport here. I am all for Jimmy going out there, whether it's IndyCar or NASCAR or Le Mans, whatever he wants to do at this point in his career, he has earned the right to do that. But again, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. Of course, Jimmy hasn't been full-time for several years now. He's obviously no longer in his championship prime. But I'd like to think it's not all him. I think, you look at, Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek this year as well, although Nemechek had a strong top 10 run this weekend, finishing in 9th place. Yeah, legacy certainly has not been the year that they would have liked. And the switch over to Toyota has not improved that team nearly as much as I was expecting it to. So I got to eat some crow on that one. But yeah, hopefully we can get that team turned around next year, because I think it would be good to have that team up there in the mix, and Jimmy as well. Can drive a 84, get win number 84. I certainly not the way that he's been running here for the last couple of years, which is unfortunate. But good to see him still out there nonetheless. And Brandon, I think all things considered, that's a worthy shining moment. The fact that he ran most of the laps and had a solid afternoon by that team's standards. Jimmy's last couple of years, I think, we can give Jimmy a shining moment. That's all right with me.
And if he finishes well at Phoenix, we'll give him another one again.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Well, Brandon, like you mentioned, I think the obvious one is both of the top two here for different reasons. Obviously, AJ Allmendinger kind of turning lemons into lemonade, I guess you could say, and turning a season that hasn't been what he and colleague were hoping for. I'm sure they were expecting to have at least been in position to have multiple wins at this point of the year, and it's kind of surprising to everybody, but this is only their first of the season. But what a time to get it, locking themselves into the championship four. And then Ryan Sieg as well. I know there's the heartbreak of coming up just short there, but well done to that team again. Another second place finish. And like we talked about on the show tonight, if they continue to run like this, you would have to think at some point they're going to be able to break through and get that win. And what a special victory that's going to be for that team as well. Those are my one shining moments for this evening here. And that is going to be our show for tonight. So thank you all so much for tuning in, as always. And be sure to follow us at Grid Network TV on all of our social media platforms, X/Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads. Most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for continuing to help us grow on YouTube all throughout 2024. And if you really liked what you saw tonight, you can consider taking a few minutes after the show to invest in our Patreon. Join Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew in helping not only keep us on the air throughout the rest of the year here in 2024, but expanding our coverage for you all, getting the track on a more regular basis in 2025 and beyond. You can also become a member of the Grid Network YouTube channel, or if you'd rather make a one-time contribution instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below, or check out the YouTube Super Chat and Super Thanks features as well. Now on Wednesday, don't miss Grid Tonight with Kobe Lambeth and Matt White. I know Matt's certainly fired up about what went down at COTA this weekend, so you're not going to want to miss that. Women in Motorsports will be back shortly as well, and then you can stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage this weekend, pre-race and wrap-up, and then we'll be back here in 7 days' time, as always, on another Motor Monday for Grid Encore. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off for this week's show?
Looking forward to the next week, and also just seeing, like 4 days ago, just in the world of sports cars and stuff, that Ferrari introduced the Ferrari F80, and it's like combustion and hybrid technology and like 1,200 horsepower, four-wheel drive. Like, this thing looks pretty sick. So I've always loved the Ferrari F40. So, I mean, well, why not make an F80? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is certainly cool. And cool weekend for Ferrari as well down in COTA. Congratulations to Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz and Ferrari. Dominant weekend here. I do have to get on my soapbox here for this final minute of the show, though.
Go ahead. Yeah, you've been over.
I'm sorry, FIA. I still don't understand track limits. Put a natural track limit there like grass or something, or better yet, take the Indy car path. Don't enforce track limits at all. Why in the world did Lando Norris get a 5-second penalty when Max Verstappen forced him off the track, when George Russell also got a 5-second penalty for forcing another car off the track? And that 6-point swing, I believe, unfortunately for McLaren fans, has essentially put this championship to bed. I think Max Verstappen is in prime position to win his 4th consecutive championship in a row. But I have to say, I am disappointed personally that it seems like he still doesn't know how to race others. Very talented driver, obviously, in terms of being able to set a fast lap time. And when he has the best car, he can go out and win by 20, 30 seconds, no doubt. We've seen the last couple of years what he's been able to do. But when he actually has to race, we saw it in 2021 with Lewis Hamilton as well. We frequently get situations like this, where if it doesn't end in a crash, it at least ends in somebody going off track or a controversial penalty or non-penalty. I don't know. It looked to me like all 4 of his tires were over the white line as well. So if you want to give Lando 5 seconds, that's fine. But I think Max deserves 5 seconds in addition to another 5 seconds for forcing Lando Norris off the track, because that's what George Russell got earlier in the race as well. So again, it is what it is. Championship, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty much decided. All eyes on the constructors now. I think Ferrari have kind of re-entered that picture with their dominant weekend over here, but I think that's going to be the more intriguing championship to watch at this point here. I think the drivers, unfortunately, again, for the McLaren fans, is I think Lando's going to have to wait another year or two before he can take the fight to Max Verstappen. So it's unfortunate that's the way the race played out, that we're talking about officiating and track limits here once again. But hey, radical revolutionary idea from me. The car that finishes ahead of the other car gets the higher spot on the result sheet. I don't know why that's so complicated. If you leave the track open, with no wall or no grass or no gravel or whatever, I don't know how you can best police that and expect drivers not to take advantage of that, especially if they've been pushed out wide. So again, we'll leave it there, but I'll get off my soapbox now. I will let Matt White happily take that on Grid Tonight this week. I have a feeling that that's probably going to be one of his knots at the very least. Maybe that'll come up during the main show as well, but make sure you stay tuned for that and for all of our Grid Network programs coming up in the next week. We'll see you here back again next Monday night. I don't know, Brandon, anything else you want to chime in on the F1 side of things, or shall we wrap up the show?
All good.
All good. All right. Well, for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for tuning in, as always, and we will see you next time right here on the Grid Network. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.